She's not here, but she's the one who's really been pushing.
She's talked to her yesterday. She has some sort of conflict. So,
Did she tell you how she wanted to vote on this?
of course. But, you know, I'm waiting for, Mr. Falconis is getting the video to wake up. Then we will start. Oh, it is starting. All right, excellent. All right, well, welcome to the September 12th Board of Trustees meeting, the Village of Flower Hill. Let us rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Miss Linda Schwartz, please lead us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I will make a motion to open up the public hearing portion of the meeting.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
First hearing on the agenda is proposed local law K, 2023, amending chapter 158-5 noise.
So this is our first public meeting, our first hearing on this local law, so we're not going to vote on it tonight. But as we stated in last month's meeting, the reason we needed to change our noise code was to make it more enforceable. The way the code is currently written has to deal with decibel levels and pressure meter levels, which makes it difficult, even with the right machinery, to enforce our code. So we're changing it to make it more based on what is reasonable sounds. And this would be determined by our code enforcement officer. And I know there were some questions last month, and I don't know if that was Gary or.
No, I had a few, but I've read it and I'm fairly satisfied.
Okay, good. And again, it's really just to make sure that our residents can have the peace and quiet that they want to have, and not have to deal with loud noises at unreasonable times of the day. Is there any questions from my board members to the right?
Steve, you reviewed it,
I just reviewed it now, not previously.
and does it hold water?
Well, yes. And the reason it holds water is because there are criteria set forth in the law for determining what is or what is not reasonable. So it's not merely a matter of what some person happens to think on a particular occasion. You apply the standards. And therefore it gives a resident fair warning of what is prohibited.
Right. And we're not looking to make this a police state at all. This is just to give relief for people who need relief when with
Right,
issues.
something
Like a
to pull up.
like a police officer doesn't have our dB meter that we have here in the office. So he wouldn't have a tool to properly gauge the noise levels in order to write a violation or to ask for it to stop. So this just gives them that extra tool.
I just have one question. Steve,
Yes.
it says public, I just want to make sure this is clear that people will not come up with a claim that private property is different. It says, no person shall operate, cause, use, cause, or permit to be operated or used any sound reproduction device in any public space. So now if I get called out on this, can I say, well, my backyard is a private space, therefore this doesn't apply to me? When isn't this really the essence of this, is to?
I think that's a reasonable reading. Your reading is reasonable. I'll talk to Jeff about that.
Okay. I think that's the essence of what we're doing here, is to prevent people from having these large sound systems now installed in their yards with these kitchens and all that stuff. So someone will come back and I'm sure their attorney will argue, well, hey, it says public and I wasn't out in the street. I was in my backyard, which is private. Okay.
Okay.
Despite encroaching on other people's private rights.
I believe it does go on to say therefore creating a reasonable course of real property boundary.
Yeah, I think it should
But
be,
the
it
public
should be
places,
clear.
yeah,
It should just be really,
backyard playing loud music, but
yeah, it should be clear.
Okay.
Okay, we can adjust that.
Okay.
Any questions from anyone in the public?
For private?
I'll let you use it. You're funny, I like that one. All right, so I'll
Tough
make
room.
a motion to continue the adjourn to the October, what's the date of the October? October 2nd meeting. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, passes. Item 2, the continued landmark designation hearing on the Elderfields Preserve. And I see our friends from the county are here. Since we're being recorded for the public record, can you state your name and address?
Yes, good evening. Thank you, Mayor. Kevin Walsh from the Office of Real Estate Services, Nassau County, 1 West Street, Mineola. And thank you again for having us entertain this proposal. We left off at last meeting your request to see if we were final with covenants restrictions. And it turned out we were not. I've been communicating with the village attorney's office. The good news is I think we've created a draft that it's simple and it really achieves the goal of mirroring the provisions in your village code for landmarking without formally landmarking, which would set potential adverse precedent for the county. So in essence, the exterior features of the property would still be subject to, the village's review, any changes, architectural and so forth. And we've actually added into the declaration 2 provisions that are not in your code, which I think you find favorable: the right to inspect the property, and also if there was some sort of casualty, fire, flood, you would get advance notice. Of course, in an emergency, you'd have to take whatever responsibility we'd have to,
Of course.
temporarily. But
Mhm.
hoping we're resolving this.
So I believe some documentation is supposed to get in our attorney's hands yesterday. When I spoke to him this morning, he didn't have it as of yet.
He did. It probably went this morning, maybe by email. So I don't know. Steve, have you seen?
We have now received.
You have now received it. Okay. So unfortunately for us here, the small changes, Steve hasn't and Jeff have not had a chance to review it, and we haven't had time to even look at it yet. So I guess we're kind of stuck to postpone this again.
I see. Well, October is coming up in short week, a few weeks, and I'm sorry
Right.
we didn't get it done. I don't know about your. I'm sure you all live with the same. People away in August were back and forth. Emails went back and forth. I thought I had a final draft. I think Jeff thought he had a final draft, but finally, I think we have a draft close. So I'm hoping. I feel confident by October 2nd we should have something resolved. And move forward.
I don't want to be confident. I want to be sure.
Yes,
Because this
I
has
agree.
this has
Can we-
dragged on for
Can
way
we-
too long.
Can we place a deadline on completing agreed draft between attorneys so that the board has an opportune time to review it before the next meeting? So rather than say October 2nd, let's say September or something?
Well, so allegedly, the document is now in possession of our counsel.
Okay, but maybe our counsel will disagree with points, and then he's got to go back to his people. I'm just saying, let's be sure no later
Okay.
than.
That's fair.
So October 2nd is a Monday. The Monday before is September 25th. Would that be sufficient time for the board?
A week, yes,
Okay.
at least a week. That just
No later than the 25th.
Yeah.
I'm confident it's, we worked harder to make sure we try to track this closely to your code. So this will be a recorded document, so we want to get it right. We don't have to re-record it. Do it complete and hopefully both parties be satisfied and move forward.
Because you understand our frustration was your predecessor gave us a document which she said is the final document, and then when she moved on elsewhere, you and the rest of council have decided to change everything.
And also
So
to point out, whatever we do agree to, the purpose of this also is we're going to memorialize, it'll be in any deed, any transfer of this property, will always have these restrictions in there.
let's just hope the property never transfers, because that's kind of the goal of all this, so that it
This is
stays.
a complicated property, it's historic preserve. So.
Right,
And parking.
and the goal is to, sorry?
And it's also parking. Right?
Yes. And the goal for it is to stay that way and not be developed and not be sold and not be modified and cut up and chopped down and whatever other things that people might want to do to a very nice pristine piece of property.
Can I just clarify?
Please.
You're done? As far as you're concerned, when you gave him, you're done.
Done with the.
This is your proposal?
No,
You're not gonna
exactly.
change it tomorrow?
Exactly,
You're done.
well, what we want to, I think we're close. And
No, I'm not talking about him.
No,
You're done.
yes,
Okay.
but I propose.
So now it's up to us to see whether we approve. I just want to make sure it's
That's
clear, so
correct.
that we don't find out you're gonna change something next week. You're done.
So the changes that were here, the changes that they made before this change of today, in talking to Jeff, they were minor changes which he said were acceptable. I don't know what has happened from my conversation with Jeff this morning to the document that he now has in his hands. So there might be, I'm hoping that there isn't anything significant from there, but we'll find out. And you're right, it should be done.
I just want to make sure the county is finished. And now it's up to us.
Right.
We prepared a draft that we think achieves its purpose.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I guess I'll make a motion to adjourn this to the October 2nd meeting with the understanding we'll be done with changes by September 25th.
Do you want to have a second to that motion? Trustee Franco, all in favor?
Thank you.
Thank you. Hopefully next month is the last time we see you.
Let's go get yours off. Thanks.
See you in the November.
Oh, and actually, so what I want to quickly ask, even though we're closed the hearing, was there any questions from anyone in the public? I apologize. So can I open back up I'll make a motion to open up the public hearing. Is that a second? I apologize. I forgot to look up.
Is this effectively prevent the
So
hospital
for your,
name?
for the record, I need your name and address.
Joe 11, 10 Oak Tree Lane,
I'm sorry, what's your last name again?
11, L-E-V-A.
Oh, that's easy.
Yeah. Does this effectively prevent the hospital from buying that property to develop?
This prevents the property from changing from it protects the building and the land from changing. We cannot prevent the property from being sold. That would have to be done by an act of the New York State Legislature. So
Who is that property owned by?
right now it is owned by Nassau County. And I'm going to play lawyer here, and when I'm incorrect, you can correct me. It is owned by Nassau County, but it is parkland. Parkland cannot be alienated, so it can't be changed from parkland to another use without the New York State Legislature's approval, including our lovely governor's signature on it as well.
But Nassau County could sell that property to the hospital.
Nassau County could sell any park land that they own to any other entity, but it would have to be, again, approved by the New York State Legislature.
Well, actually, absent legislative approval, the sale would be subject to the parkland designation. It's a public trust.
Right.
They could not change the use of the property as parkland without the approval of the state legislature. It's
And-
held in trust for the public.
So what is our landmark status adding to that wrapper?
It adds that if it was to be sold, that the covenants that are going to be put on the property would prevent it from being taken down, destroyed, moved. So someone, in essence, could probably, I'm going to make conjecture here, which you'll get mad at me for. In theory, someone could sell it, but then no one could ever knock it down or material modify it with these protections. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to protect the property. And I think the covenants that this county is willing to put on this property will prevent its use for anything other than a nice old historic building.
Thank
It
you for
would,
that.
it would prevent it from being paved over and put up a parking lot. To quote the great philosopher.
I'm a lawyer.
Joni Mitchell.
Yes, Ms. Mitchell.
Am I out of order now to discuss other hospital issues? Or is
You are out of order for that, but we could bring you back in a few minutes after the next public hearing under public comment, and we can hear from you. Did you have a comment, Mr. Smith?
No, I was just gonna say, I'm a lawyer by profession, but I'm not a real estate lawyer, but I can play one here. The reason we're contemplating this is because the last thing I saw, no, I haven't seen what was sent today, the last thing we've seen from the county in every board meeting I've attended, because since I've joined the board, this has come up at every single board meeting we've attended, the covenants that the county is willing to agree to are actually more restrictive than the landmark thing that we were going to put onto this property. And that's the only reason, I can't speak for everyone else, but that appears to be the only reason we're entertaining this in the first place, is that the county was willing to do more in return for us not landmarking it, which has other problems because the village landmarking county land, now it becomes a jurisdictional issue because the county is theoretically a larger jurisdiction than the village is. So they may not have been enforceable, us landmarking it may not have been legally enforceable, but a covenant in the deed is always legally enforceable.
And I believe these covenants also require them to maintain the property where landmarking alone would not
Yeah.
As a lawyer
enforce that.
myself, I'm always skeptical that I believe the hospital has large plans. And by Nassau County not allowing us to landmark, and I think Nassau County can be susceptible of political pressures of Catholic Health Services to sell the property to the hospital. So that's.
Your point is extremely well taken, but that's why we're gonna spend the next month looking at what the county provided us today.
Because I don't want the village to lose control of that property. of Nassau County.
I believe we will do excellent things for that property to keep it forever wild or historical, whatever.
Thank you all. Thank you for your
Thank you, Mr. Levin, as always. Anybody else? Then I will make a motion again to adjourn this landmark designation hearing to the October 2nd meeting at 7:30 PM. Do I have the same second? And all in favor?
Aye.
3, continued landmark designation hearing on 7 West Shore Road. This is not a public hearing. So if any of the trustees would like to speak about this property, they may do so, because it is my intention to hold a vote on this tonight.
I guess I'll speak. So, I think this wasn't an easy thing to work through. And so a couple things that have crossed my mind is that as a thought experiment, I think if there weren't covenants on the house, what would a board member choose to do? And so that's kind of the litmus test for me. And I think we took the trouble of creating a landmarks commission to do precisely the public's work of doing designations on properties that we feel are historically valuable. And so even though I do prize private rights, I do feel like in this case that for the public good, I would fall on the favor of landmarking.
Okay. And I concur with you. I want to thank again the Landmark Commission for the innumerable hours they spent researching and holding public meetings. And I'd like to thank your colleague, Mr. Blinkoff, for leading that and dealing with those things. And again, as you stated, there's already covenants on this property. So it's really just for me ensuring that the covenants will be enforced, because right now the court of jurisdiction would be Roslyn Village, which doesn't make sense to me because that property is not in the Roslyn Village. So it's really just to protect something that's already protected, but to ensure that our records will in fact state these protections to prevent anything from happening in the future, because this board won't be here, the village administrator won't be here, our building inspector won't be here, and this guarantees that that knowledge is written in digital format in our software system. Any other questions, comments? That being no, I would like to, do I make a motion to hold the vote?
You can move the proposition.
So I'll move the proposition to vote, and I will vote first. And I will vote first. Oh, wait, Ronnie's checking something.
Just looking for the resolution.
Okay.
Okay, so the mayor has proposed the following resolution, and seconded by,
Oh, someone like to second that we're holding the vote?
or, well, let me read the resolution, then you can.
Okay.
Okay, be it resolved that Frederick M. Eastman Carriage House located at 7 West Shore Road, Roslyn, New York, 11576, should be designated as a landmark within the village in accordance with section 143-6H of the village code.
So I'll make that motion, I guess.
Offer that resolution.
Sorry, yes. I will offer that resolution. Do I have a second?
I'll say.
Okay, I'm gonna work on the board. Okay, Mayor?
I will vote yes.
Okay. Trustee Smith?
Yes.
Trustee Wodowski?
Aye.
Trustee Dorfman? Deputy Mayor?
Aye.
Trustee Franklin?
Aye.
So moved.
All right, I will make a motion to close the public hearing portion of this meeting. Do I have a second?
Okay, I'm sorry, second, Trustee Dorfman?
Yes.
I thought I heard you.
Yes.
Okay.
She's being very quiet. All in favor? Thank you, passes. Let's go back to public comment. Mr. Levin, would you like to come back? I might not have answers for you, but you can ask the questions.
That's okay, I'm just gonna express my
Sure.
So I think most of us know that the hospital owns the property from Wood Hill on the north side of Oak Tree Lane, from Wood Hill to the boulevard, maybe not the little village. They also own the house on my side of Oak Tree Lane. They bought the house right next to me, and I know that because I've been dealing with Jack on the poor maintenance that they're showing on that
I mean,
property.
the house with the sled house?
Yeah,
The sled house.
20, what do you call it?
The sled house, because there's the sled
Yes.
on that's been there for the sled
Bought
house.
by a developer and then sold it to the hospital. So that property is on eyesight, everyone comes to our house, visitors, I'm a
So-
lawyer, I have clients come
So
to my
just
house.
so you know, we've had numerous conversations with the hospital. They are going to close the house back up. They're going to make it presentable, and they're going to remove the fence and maintain the property. So it's going to look like a house again. No one's going to be living there currently, but Ronnie, when did they say they were going to accomplish
They
that?
said they were gonna do it last week.
So,
I mean, they came, I don't know how that came because I went to Jack last week and told him how poorly that is maintained. The fence is broken,
wait a second.
I hear noises from the house. There are lanternflies all over that property that are encroaching into my
I do not
backyard.
believe that the hospital has power to restrict the lanternflies from swarming whatever bushes they like. to
Right, but
use.
if I got a letter from the hospital, we want to be a good neighbor. If my neighbor lived there, he
So
would not
give us,
want.
I just got an email from George Hearn a few days ago, and don't ask me what day it was, but I think it was sometime last week, beginning of the week or end of the week, that said he was going to close the property. So
Yeah. 'Cause I
we're,
talked to
we're,
you
we're on
already.
top of it.
Someone
I
came last
am
week and they-
your advocate here. We're all over the hospital to make sure that this gets brought back up to the standards of our village and it doesn't come
Okay,
this way.
so
So,
they came and boarded it up,
good.
but.
That's a start. All right, listen,
Okay.
they did part of the work. That's good to board it up so that we don't have,
And I'm just saying, if
Thanks.
one of us lived there and the house, you go in the backyard, it's inundated with lanternflies. They're big trees of heaven. I have guests, they come over my pool. We spend an hour swatting them. That's unacceptable for me and unacceptable that that's not been taken care of. And if a neighbor lived there, like one of us, someone would not allow lanternflies to be all over their property and encroaching on my property.
okay.
The other thing I just want to say is I'm a lawyer and I've worked with a lot of developers. And I got this letter from the hospital that maybe many of you got saying, I want to know we are committed to being a good neighbor. We will be transparent throughout the planning activities. So that is total falsehood in my view, because no one spends $20, $25 million buying property they're buying property way above the market value.
Which is their right to do in this
Yeah.
country.
They're allowed to, but they have to have a plan, right? No one spends $25 million buying property. They're saying they want to be transparent. No one does that without
So
having.
I can't speak for the hospital, but they have not shared a plan with anybody in this village board, and they have not shared any plan with anyone else in the community that I'm aware of. We have asked them that as soon as you're ready to have a plan, we would like to be we'd like for you, the hospital, to be transparent with the residents, and not necessarily through the village, but they need to do a listening tour. They need to make their presentation, and just because they want something doesn't mean they're going to get something. There's lots of checks and balances and zoning changes and
I mean, they're a
planning changes.
powerful organization. Catholic House is a powerful organization.
and you're scared of them?
We're-
Because I'm not.
I'm scared of them.
I'm not.
Because they spend $25 million buying properties, they have to
That's
think they're gonna be
That's
able to
great. That's
accomplish.
great that they have the money to spend that, but to me, it's speculation. So there's no plan. I got a same copy of the letter. As soon as they have a plan, they will present the plan. Just because they have a plan doesn't mean that that plan will be voted on by this board the way that they want it to happen. So there's lots of checks and balances and things that have to happen. They can buy the entire village if they want. Nothing's going to change.
And we won't have any tax revenue.
Well, there you go. They'll probably buy every house but yours.
I mean, I think the thing to be clear about is we're your elected officials. You guys elect us.
They don't.
We have, right, they don't elect us. So we have to listen to what you guys want. And
As a
according-
property owner in the village, they're,
Well, obviously they're an important player, but they don't have any, not to me, they don't have any political influence over what this board stands for. So, they're important. They're an asset to the community that we have to respect. But that doesn't mean they get to be the bully of the community. So I think, we respect that everyone is concerned. I think the board shares the concern of what they're trying to do. Obviously, they're going to come up with some kind of ways to expand it. That's very clear that that's going to happen some way. And I'm sure they're going to throw out a bunch of options on the table. And quite frankly, that's going to be the difficult thing that we're going to have to do as a board and as a community is address how we want to deal with the big gorilla in the room. And there'll be choices, and then none of them will probably be ones that everyone can agree on. But I do think, it's right now it's hard for us to even imagine what they're thinking over there.
They might come up with a plan that you might love. We don't know what the plan is. So when the plan is, we don't know. You're a
I
lawyer.
appreciate that you all are sensitive to the situation.
I
That's all can
think
ask.
this
That's all I
board and previous versions of this board have been the same way for the last, how many years now? 3 years? At least. And there are people in the village who like to spread falsities about this board and previous board and false allegations on how we possibly are in concert with the hospital, and that's all untrue. We are here to represent you and the rest of your neighbors, and we intend to do so. But I don't have a plan. I don't know what they're doing. When we have the plan, we will all know the plan, and then we can act accordingly. And again, you might love it. I don't know what the plan is going to be. It might be something that the Levin family says, oh my God, this is the greatest thing. We love it. Hospital, we accept your plan. So
I just want to say though, to your point, they spent $25 million on property.
allegedly.
And they haven't told us anything. So the question of whether they're being fully transparent or not, I think you raise a good point. And I also ask you, as a resident, specifically affected by this, it's important that you bring your concerns to the board, but it's also important when these things start to develop, that you and your neighbors are here to back us, to support us, when we tell them they're not going to just do whatever they want.
Yeah, but I can't, every neighbor has their own point of view.
Absolutely.
Neighbors who are offered double the value for their property have effectively sold their
I
property.
wish I owned that house.
Everyone thinks of the general population, but at the end of the day, everyone.
But it's also going to be more than you. It's going to be everyone on Wood Hill, everyone on the other affected streets. And it's that entire side of, I can tell you, It'll be everyone affected, because if the hospital does some sort of expansion, it's going to increase traffic, which affects other parts of the village. So it affects everybody.
Well, you,
This is not, let's say they came with a plan tomorrow. It's not going to be,
I mean, you saw they had radars on Oak Tree Lane and on.
they have been conducting some traffic
Traffic
studies.
Yeah, they hired a planner.
Correct, to see if they could close Oak Tree Lane, measuring the traffic, so they
So-
have
so-
a master plan, they're not sharing it.
Yep.
They have.
I don't know how they're going to close a public road. So you have a board. This board is going to listen to everyone fairly, because that's our job. But I currently have no interest in knocking down all these beautiful homes and roads and whatever these allegations are. And I don't know if anyone else has any opinion else on that. But what else can we help you with other than that?
Just want to make
We're
sure
here-
you're aware of the
we're here-
situation.
we're-
You seem aware of the situation.
Listen, otherwise I wouldn't be up their butt on fixing the house next to you. We're
Yeah.
trying to, so we're
I
on the
appreciate
resident
that.
side.
It's just an eyesore when people come over
And we've asked them to, and they haven't been bad, but we've told them, all the properties that you own that are no longer occupied, make sure that they look good. And they're doing a good job with that. So we're on top of them.
Okay,
Thank you, Mr. Levin. We'll keep up with you. Hopefully you'll see the fence going soon.
thank you, Mayor, thank you, Board of Trustees.
All righty. Anybody else from the public would like to speak? Sir?
Arthur B. Hall, 31 Knowles Lane. I just have a question for the board. I want to know whether our garbage carters are still doing recycling on behalf of the village.
I was told the answer is yes. And they most recently sent us some beautiful pictures. Because I harassed them a little bit on recycling. And I have seen them recycle, and they have shot me pictures of the recycle bins full on the truck. So the answer is yes.
Okay. And the
It's in
reason
our
I-
contract, so yes.
Okay. The reason I ask is that in looking at security video for my property, I see them take the orange bucket,
Mhm.
bottles, cans, and plastics, dump that into their collection basket, then take my garbage, and dump that in right on top of it.
So when they do your garbage, is it still in a bag or is it loose?
I'm sorry,
When they take your garbage
Yeah.
and they put it in this bin,
Yeah.
is it loose garbage or in a bag?
it's loose.
You throw all your garbage loose in your can,
Well, some of the,
You don't
the
use
wet,
bags?
the wet stuff is bagged and the paper is loose.
right? Okay.
And after the recycles